maybe we could start with a poem. I thought visitation with the
Yeah,
radiologist would be would
yeah,
set the table nicely
yeah,
for us. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Uh, I'll read the first two poems in the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Uh, so the first one is a very short poem. It's not a haiku. It's a three-line poem. It's called Oncology Waiting Room. Into a vase of wilted purple roses, the receptionist drops an aspirin. And then the next poem in the book is a longer poem. It's called Visitation with the Radiologist. It's not a good disease to have, my doctor says. I admire his grim honesty. I admire it greatly. Indolent, but it usually does progress, which sounds about right for me. 2 years of misdiagnosed torment, and now this. I ask him about suicide. He nods. It happens, he says. When I tell him I've seriously considered it, he says my disease would qualify me for death with dignity because it's incurable, though I might not meet the 6 months to live criteria, just the unendurable pain part, which will come back after I've exhausted all the treatments. But they might make an exception if it's a choice between bending the rules and blowing your brains out. This is my doctor telling the truth, filters off. I slide down into it as into a warm bath. I want to stay here forever, ask him every question. Maybe death is speaking through him. What's it like on the other side? I want to ask. Once you're dead, do you stop worrying about what people think of you? Are you allowed to intervene in the affairs of the living, offer invisible advice now and then, a nudge on the arm? How shall I live with the time I have left is the real question. I don't ask it, but let it blossom into the room. This, this conversation, this way of speaking turns me toward an answer.
It's a very honest poem, just like the doctor, right?
I was so surprised and pleased that he was so honest with me. The oncologist I was working with at the time was kind of a cheerleader, and she kept painting one rosy picture after another of these treatments, none of which worked for me. I was just treatment resistant, I guess. But it was refreshing to find somebody who wasn't doing that,
Yeah.
who wasn't trying to make me feel better about, my situation. So yeah, he was great. I really liked him, and I would have kept working with him, but the radiation also didn't work. So we
Yeah.
that path was closed. But yeah, yeah, it was a gift. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There's a line that sticks out for me. It's like one of those goosebumps lines.
Mm.
Um, I slide down into it as into a warm bath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa. Tell me more about that line.
It was just the feeling of warmth and comfort and the this sense of I would like to stay here forever, or at least for a good long while, and just keep talking to him about this. Um, but it just felt like the right way to indicate that sense of wanting to be immersed in this feeling, in this field of connection that we had created. These things just come to you when you're writing, and you have to invent reasons for it after the fact, but they
Yes,
just
of
come.
course. It makes me just feel like I want to sink down with you, right? And only you are
Mm.
there, but it seems like it's something that seems impossible, but you get it when you read this poem. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this is a place no one should want to be,
right,
right?
right, yeah, right. But if you're there,
If you're there.
if you're already there, then you make the best of it, and you relish these moments of connection. I mean, that's such a beautiful way of engaging with poetry.
Mm,
Like, that's what I call entering the poem.
yeah.
Instead of thinking about it and making statements about it. And of course, we have to do that to some
Yeah,
extent,
yeah.
um, but uh, that desire to enter the poem, to be with the experience in a way to have the experience yourself. I mean, that's just a much richer way of engaging with poetry.
Mm.
And, you know, that's, I've been proselytizing about that
Yes, that's
for
your
a
thing.
while now. And I've picked up a few converts.
I'm one of the converts, a bad student, but a convert nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, people have written to me and said, you know, I used to hate poetry. And rightly so. I mean, the way it's taught is just dreadful. You know, what does it mean? Who cares what it means? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
in a way, you have to experience the poem first, you know, and then if you have thoughts about it, of course that's fine. But you can't start by interrogating the poem and analyzing it. That doesn't, it just keeps you at a distance, and that's just not the best way, in my
yeah,
view. No,
yeah.
yeah.
How's the sinking down into it been going?
um, well, it's hard, you know. The cancer I have is it's hard to live with. Yeah, it's very, very painful.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I'm not quite sure how to
Yeah,
answer that
yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the other thing I thought is at the end of the poem, right? Something that struck me as conversations, right?
Mhm.
You know, this way of speaking, right? This sort of way of connecting, this
Yeah.
way of, and seems like to you, for you, if I'm feeling this poem, actually it's been something that's important in my life, you know, doing interviews, right? And doing these things. Like I feel like Dharma is best experienced in a conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
said, poems, right? Almost like explaining a poem.
Mhm.
It sort of feels like attending a teaching where there's an explanation, right?
Yeah.
Rather than like
Right.
engaging, I don't know, engaging in a conversation gets you doing it, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like,
Yeah.
you know, that's, I just said that I could feel that when I came to the end of that. It's like, you know, we're talking about illness,
Yeah.
death here, right? You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, what's the hell is important? What's all
Yeah.
this for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, I mean, what you're saying about conversation, I mean, it's relational. There's a field of connection that gets created in that space that is really rich. And
Mm.
it's not just you, it's you're interacting with someone and you're creating, you know, this merging of consciousness that can be, you know, so much richer than a solo.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and so yeah, the end. You know, uh, I'll just how shall I live with the time I have left is the real question. I don't ask it, but let it blossom into the room. This conversation, this way of speaking, turns me toward an answer, and you know, without explaining it too much, but it was just something like about the honesty of that conversation.
Yeah.
That's how I want to live. I want to try to live my life more honestly and openly. And, you know, I mostly fail at that, but it's an aspiration.
Yeah.
And um and then that, you know, turns me toward an answer. It's not the answer, but it turns me toward an answer, which feels more nuanced, let's say, or maybe just truer, that you don't get the answer, but you turn towards it.
Yeah. This is what it's all about because actually you don't even ask the question, right?
Yeah,
You don't ask the question and the answer is not content, right? Because the
right,
question was never asked, right?
right, right. Yeah,
Yeah. And the process is acting on you, right?
yeah,
That process, like I'm talking about conversation, trying
yeah,
to be, and honesty in conversation,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's something magical about that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you can feel it when you're in that kind of conversation. I feel it now with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That just is beautiful. I mean, there's just kind of nothing else quite like it.
Yeah.
And it's just so nourishing. Whatever the content is, it's the connection that's nourishing, and Yeah, it's beautiful. It's one of the things that makes life worth living, you know.
I often want to have meaning conversations. That's like my thing. I don't want to waste time. I want to have meaningful conversations, not just like in interviews, but just in life.
Yeah.
And I noticed that whenever I try to have meaningful conversations, they're terrible. They're like so
Uh,
but
it
honesty
feels
gets
forced or something, or it
it's just
feels,
like, like it's like in meditation when you effort, it sort of
yeah,
gets you out of
right.
meditation, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
seems like honesty is like the side door to meaning in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. 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 No, I get that. Because if you're grasping for that kind of honesty, of course, we know that any kind of grasping does not, it doesn't work. Um, yeah, it can feel artificial or a little forced or something. And so it has to arise, spontaneously. But I think just holding the importance of that, without necessarily saying it, can maybe bring it about more often. I don't know. I'm the same way. I get very tired of conversations that stay on the surface level. I mean, some of that's fine, but if that's all there is, boy, I just kind of check out,
Yeah.
Like if I'm at a
Well,
dinner party and people are talking about these incredibly superficial things, it's just like, I don't want to hear it.
exactly. Exactly. And oh, well, you can tell in your poetry because you go straight to the freaking heart sometimes, right? You just go like, just you take the side door, right? Like, of course, you have limited time as well. That's
Yeah.
so I'm sure your patience for the mundane may have gotten less, maybe, or maybe it's, I don't know. How does this act on you in terms
Yeah.
of just interacting, relations, and
Yeah.
this type of things?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think I have become kinder as I've been ill with this cancer, and a little more forgiving,
Mm,
uh, and a little less attached to my, reactions to things.
mm.
And I'm so incredibly fortunate. I have the most amazing friends that
Yeah,
anybody could wish for. I mean, and lots of them. I mean, it's just incredible. So, and those friends, we go deep, and
yeah,
so I don't really have conversations that are superficial very often. Um, uh, so it hasn't really come up a lot. I suspect my patience would be, I'm not sure.
yeah, yeah.
It might be less, it might be more. But I'm a little bit less judgmental about people who stay on that level, although it doesn't really sound like it. I
um,
try to be.
relational stuff. When you are sitting writing a poem, right?
Yeah,
Can seem very like solo act, right? But
yeah,
it seems like this relational thing is this conversation we've been talking about and honesty. How do you, and not contriving, right? How do
yeah,
you sit down and do poetry
yeah,
without contriving? And how is it conversational? Are these things that come
yeah,
up in your practice?
yeah. I mean, so much of that is unconscious, you're not really thinking about, how do I do this? And I want to have a relational connection in the poem. I mean, it happens or it doesn't. But I think, anytime you write a poem, you're in conversation with every other poem that you've read, and especially the poems and the poets who've been most important to you. So they're always, I mean, that's kind of my first audience. And again, it's not really conscious, but there's this quality of you're alone. It's a solitary thing, but everything you've read is in there. It's kind of been absorbed into your system, into your poetic universe. And so I'm speaking to those people. I'm talking to myself. Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't thought about that much before, obviously.
Yeah, well, it comes naturally to you. I think most of us sit down if we're to write, it would feel like, wanting to have a meaningful conversation. and forcing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall we sprinkle in another poem?
Sure. Well, maybe I'll just read the next one.
Yeah.
It's called Side Effects. Side effects may include brain fog, fatigue, an overall blah feeling. You may experience blurred vision. The world may begin to look sepia-toned. Childhood memories of carefree joy may become inaccessible. Future happiness may appear to disappear. The present may seem drained of color, of texture, of life itself. Contact your doctor right away if you notice a subtle increase in your receptivity to gravity, or if it seems you are walking underwater, or are over-vivifying your visions of personal and collective catastrophe, or are sleepless for more than 6 months, or feel you have entered what Gabriel Garcia Marquez called the endless Sunday afternoons of death. But don't despair, don't. Something clean and clear awaits you on the other side of all this.
It's one of the questions I really want to ask is, do you believe something clean and clear awaits you on the other side of all this?
I believed it when I wrote it.
This is
I mean,
honesty, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, all these things are provisional. I mean, you're in the moment, if you're
Yeah.
feeling inspired, things come to you, you don't question them or ask yourself, well, I guess you do. Is that really true or not? I mean, I guess it depends on how you read the other side of all this. So, you can read the other side as, the afterlife or
Yeah.
whatever comes after death,
Yeah.
or um, on the other side of this illness or,
What I really want to know is, poetry is your practice, right? Is
yeah. Mhm.
is poetry your central Dharma practice? Do you have other practices? How has, having this illness, has these things helped?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it is my practice. However sick I am, I get up every single morning and go to my desk. And, I may not write anything, I may not get into any kind of flow, but I show up every single day, and put myself in that space, and I'm receptive. If something comes, I'm ready. Most of the time it doesn't come. And then so I read, I just start reading poems. And then often that will spark, I'll see something and that will spark um, a memory, or it will uh, uh, touch on something that I wanted to say but didn't know I wanted to say,
Mm.
and then I'll see something in a poem and that will kind of take me there. In fact, I stole something in this poem. Uh, yeah, I'll find it for you. It's a poem by I think Galway Canal, I believe. It's in the Poetry of Grief, Gratitude, and
Mm.
here it is. It's called Daybreak by Galway Canal.
Mm.
I'll read it for you. And T.S. Eliot famously said, how did he put it? Good poets borrow, great poets steal. Just grab what you need, and make no apologies. So I'll read this. Daybreak. On the tidal mud just before sunset, dozens of starfishes were creeping. It was as though the mud were a sky and enormous, imperfect stars moved across it slowly as the actual stars cross heaven. All at once they stopped, and as if they had simply increased their receptivity to gravity, they sank down into the mud, faded down into it, and lay still. And by the time pink of sunset broke across them, they were as invisible as the true stars at daybreak. And again, just to be clear, that's a poem by Galway Canal. It's not
Yeah.
one of mine. However, the lines about, increasing their receptivity to
Yeah.
gravity, I just lifted and
Yeah.
you know, call your doctor, contact your doctor right away if you notice a subtle increase in receptivity to gravity. You know? I go, oh, I'm sinking.
It's, you know, I think poets are in some ways the best spiritual teachers, right? And all they call forth is nature,
Yeah,
often, right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
It's profound, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you say nature, you mean, yeah, tell me, what do you mean?
Oh, like just when I hear that, I'm seeing all these images, right?
Yeah.
Like we think profound, spiritual transcendence, right?
Hmm.
The poets are going, it feels like, I don't know, you correct me,
Yeah, yeah,
going in,
yeah,
like going in. And I
yeah,
learned recently that you often think that you look out to the galaxies, right?
yeah,
And you think, wow, the universe is so expansive. And then you can look internally, right? And say, oh, I'm made up of all these molecules or whatever,
yeah.
proteins and all this sort of stuff and atoms. And had assumed, I don't know why I assumed this. I had assumed that I was where I sit, my vantage point was the midway, right?
Mm. Hmm.
That that as far out as I can go, which
Yeah.
may be infinite, was as far in
Ah,
that I can go, right? And for
yeah,
some reason, I think it's a different type of ego, right? That I'm right in the center, like the world revolves around me. And someone told me, a scientist recently told me that this way more in, like
yeah.
compared to like how far you can go,
Uh,
going in, like you can go so much for like to an organ. I can't remember what he said, but the scientists think that the the world going inwards, like smaller and smaller, is much more of a distance than out.
that makes
Yeah,
sense. I struggle with a lot of regrets and these kind of intrusive thoughts. Of course, we all do,
yeah.
these painful memories. And I was reading a book by Joan Tollefson called Death, the End of Self-Improvement. Isn't that
Yeah,
great?
finally, we get to stop.
Just drop it. It's not
Just
going to
drop it.
happen.
Yeah. Like you think, like it's so interesting. You're saying you're having these regrets and intrusive thoughts, and you'd almost think that I sort of feel like, can I be a little bit easier on myself as
Yeah,
if when I come to that, right? And
yeah.
this is not is a part of it is you ask a question in one of your poets, right, in one of your poems, and the question is something along the lines of, do you get to what is it? It struck me again.
Uh,
Uh, oh yeah, it's from Radiologist. Once you're dead, do you stop worrying about what people think of you, right?
gotta
Oh,
happen sometime.
damn, I hope so, right?
I remember reading a novel a long time ago. I can't remember the author, but somewhere the novelist said, we wouldn't worry so much about what people thought of us if we realized how little they did.
Exactly.
Thinking about, oh, this person's got to be, no, they don't care. They're thinking about, no.
Exactly.
I brought up Joan Tolleson because one of the things she said, or she quoted some other teacher, I can't remember who, um, but the teacher was saying something like, whatever it is, just drop it,
Yeah.
just drop it. Whether it's a practice you think is essential or I'm not doing it justice, but
Yeah.
she said, you're vast. You are vast. And now whenever I have these intrusive thoughts, I just try to drop it and remember the vastness, which is so much more important than any of these, painful memories that they're so small and ultimately insignificant. But the vastness is true and real and gives us a place to be free of all that. So
Yeah.
I was just going to read a poem about my cat.
Let's do the cat. I love it.
It's just a haiku. There's a bunch of them, but the one that I especially like is on page 42.
Me too.
Writer's block. The cat rests her chin on my right hand.
I love it. Could you read one for me? One of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's about the crickets, the
Oh,
rats and the crickets.
page 30. I'll read that one and the next one too.
Yeah.
Just before dawn, my tinnitus takes over where the crickets leave off.
It brings me so present that those lines.
And the next one, um, newspaper ad. Are you hard of hearing? Shouldn't it be in all caps?
Yes, I love that one. I love that one. That one took a second for to drop for me when I read it. I
Yeah,
love it. I
yeah.
love it.
Newspapers yelling at you.
Yeah, yeah. Another beautiful one, 36.
36. Yeah. They take turns, raindrops falling from the eaves.
Yeah.
And that's just a simple observation. It's like you watch them and yeah, they take turns,
They're
they don't,
lining up. They're lining up.
yeah, they don't all fall at once or even two together. It seems it's just almost always one at a time.
Yeah.
And, you
And
know, it's just
that,
interesting.
well, I think also that's the example of what we're talking about. The poet, this is nature, right?
Yeah, just looking, seeing, being with what is, being with what shows up. And that's the great thing about haiku. There's no room for thinking in haiku. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really do it. You can't, or you can't uh, perseverate, or that's not the right word. You can't elaborate. It's just this. There's no room to go on and on about something, and so it's just, there's a kind of immediacy and simplicity about haiku that I think is really beautiful, and is a spiritual practice. I mean, most haiku poets, well, I think this is probably true, are Zen
Yeah.
or certainly meditators, um, and regarded as a spiritual practice. There's a wonderful book by Gabriel Rosenstock called Haiku Enlightenment, and I highly recommend it to anybody listening who's interested in haiku. It's a wonderful book, and he picks just amazing examples, and um, his own writing about the haiku is just beautiful. Yeah, it's just an incredible book. So
It
yeah,
seems like there's a lot of trust that these few words will get the job done, right?
yeah, and that's the hard thing about
Yeah.
haiku is you have so little space, so little room to move that you have to compress and get to the essence. With as little wandering around as possible. The longer poems you can wander around, and that's fun,
Mm.
but not in a haiku. It has to be immediate, and they're much harder to write than I thought. I've only been writing them for about 5 years, and I'm still a novice. Um, there are people who devoted their entire lives to writing haiku.
How did you get into haiku?
It really started with the Impermanence anthology. But there I was just including the ancient Japanese. Well, there's one by Jack Kerouac, but other than that, they're all, Issa, Busan, and Basho. Um, and so I was reading them a lot. And then it just occurred to me, well, I can't really remember exactly how, but at some point I thought, well, let me check out what's going on now in the haiku world. So I got a couple anthologies. And I was just stunned. I had no idea that there was a thriving haiku community and that there were poets who were writing this just extraordinary poems. I had no idea. I mean, most mainstream poets look down their noses at haiku. They think it's
Mm.
easy, or they think it's, oh, so what?
Yeah.
If you read haiku in the same mindset that you read like a longer poem, yeah, you'll shrug your shoulders and say, well, what, there's nothing there, so raindrops falling from the eaves, who cares? Um, you know, but once you kind of begin to inhabit the haiku mindset, you see that everything matters,
Yes, that's right.
It doesn't matter how small, how seemingly insignificant it might be, but it's all important. And once you accept that, then the whole world comes alive and you feel like everything is worthy of attention, of um, being looked at closely, being present with. And so I read those anthologies and I just was completely blown away by so many of the poems. And then I just started reading more and more and more. So I'd read a poet who's in the anthology that I really liked, and I'd go and order their books. Their books are hard to find usually.
Yeah.
I've been doing that ever since. I read haiku every morning. I read a lot of haiku every morning, and so it's kind of getting into my system in a
How
way.
do you read? Like if you were, following the rabbit hole down and you've got one of your favorites and you've got their book
Yeah,
and you're in the morning, how do you enter their poems?
yeah.
How would you do it real life?
Well, I mean, I read them and then I linger over them, and when I read a poem that I read that really goes deep or that I really resonate with, yeah, I'll close my eyes and just sit with it and just picture what's being said and kind of try to inhabit that experience. Um, I'll tell you one of my favorites, and this is in also in the Grief Anthology, and it's by one of my favorite haiku poets. He's just wonderful, Christopher Harold, who lives up in Port Townsend, who I had the great pleasure to meet one time, and we've become close friends. But his haiku is cherry petals. The child adds a handful to the busker's cap.
Mm. Wow. Wow. So you would sit
Cherry,
with that for some time, right?
yeah, cherry petals. The child adds a handful to the busker's cap.
Wow.
You can just see the scene,
Yeah.
at like probably a farmer's market, let's
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
you know, and there's a busker out there and he's playing music, and I'm sure that the child has seen the adults putting money in there, and children are great imitators. So there's just the innocence of like picking up some cherry petals
Yeah.
and dropping them in. I mean, you can imagine the delight of people seeing that in real
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
how beautiful that must have been. It's that moment. But the poem just captures it so beautifully. You don't need to say anything else,
No.
but it puts you right in the scene in a way that's wonderful.
It's magic. It's like incantation in a way. And often like feelings are so ephemeral, right?
Yeah,
And you're like, oh, I wish I could, this moment of joy, I wish I could pause, pause
yeah,
that for a little bit longer,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And in a way, these poems will allow us to enter these dimensions over and over and over again, probably tasting a little each time, different each time, but
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
magic.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you don't get there with every haiku, but the
Yeah.
ones that do take you there, it's just extraordinary. I just love it. Yeah, I mean, I just get so lit up when I read
I,
a great haiku.
I get to like talk to great meditators, right? And then I know that when I sit, my meditation's like this, and when they sit, it's just different, right? And so I like to imagine what it's like when they're meditating, right? And
Yeah,
and
right.
and so I know when I read a poem, it's like this, and I'm sure when you read a poem, it's like completely different. But I like to imagine what it's like when you read a poem, or when a great poet or someone
Yeah,
who can enter the dimensions
yeah.
more sort of deeper. Yeah,
I
is what
think
I
we're pretty
meant.
simpatico in the way we enter poems, you and me. From talking to you, I feel like you enter them in the right spirit, so I wouldn't compare yourself.
Yeah.
I read something recently on Thubton. I did a
Oh yeah.
retreat with him and Tracy Goodman
Yeah.
at Spirit Rock a few years ago. But he said, I think it was in maybe an interview or something, but he said, I get distracted all the time in my meditation. Oh, thank you.
One of my teachers said, more thoughts, great, more Dharmakaya.
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, that's great.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
his approach. So I like
yeah,
it.
yeah,
In
yeah.
one of your poems, you mention a teacher that promised like collective enlightenment, and I was wondering who that teacher was.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you. It's a dear friend of mine who is a medicine carrier,
Ah,
um, or a shaman.
yeah.
He does ayahuasca ceremonies and he does sessions with MDMA. Uh,
Mm,
but he trained with shamans in Peru, and I mean he's deep in the whole lineage. And I've done a couple ayahuasca journeys with him, and he's told me that. he had a vision when he did ayahuasca by himself a long time ago. Um, and he just got this download from the universe that, and when he talks about it, it's just, you can't help but feel the truth of it, because he just says, the collective awakening is a done deal. It's
Hmm.
it's going to happen, absolutely. Um, Getting there there'll be much pain and
Yeah.
chaos and confusion, but it's a done deal. It's
Yeah.
absolutely, and this is not him thinking this. This is what the medicine told him,
Told him.
and that's a different source.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I believe him. He's an amazing teacher, and
Yeah.
yeah,
It speaks to Buddha nature as well, right? That speaks to Buddha nature.
yeah.
Um, so what's the shamanic path like? Have you've been on a bit of a shamanic path as well, and how does that inform your work, or is that just a personal spiritual journey for you?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I would say I'm on a shamanic path. I mean, I'm interested in shamanism. I've read a lot about it. Even when I was an undergrad, I was reading Mircea Eliade. Do you know that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. The Sacred and the Profane.
yeah,
Incredible book. And yeah, I've just always been fascinated. And then the Carlos Castaneda books, and I know there's a lot of controversy about them now, but I read those in high school, when I was taking a lot of
yeah,
LSD and doing all kinds of drugs, everything I could get my hands
yeah.
on. So I was aware of the shamanic path and the worlds that could open up. But yeah, I mean, I guess the ayahuasca journeys are shamanic in a way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's hard to say how it's influenced my writing. Certainly, my experience of psychedelics or hallucinogens um, has was a profound. I mean, it was a life-changing experience, because I saw very clearly that, oh, this world is not the only world. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
there is a whole other realm that is beautiful and alive and just so amazing. And I mean, it was just a thrill. I was just incredible to experience that, at a pretty young age. And then I think, you can't do LSD every morning. Unless you're John Lennon, I guess. He really did that. Um, but writing poetry became another way to kind of stay in contact
Mm.
with this deeper realm that wasn't just, the surface of life, the conventions we're all expected to follow. It was deeper and much more magical than that. So poetry became a way of continuing my conversation with that world. Yeah.
I want to follow through on this thought, but this brings me to another one of my favorite poems, the one about you in Prospect Park.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
that's a good time for this one, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. This is a poem. Uh, I've given it a few readings lately, and I haven't read this one. I'm not sure why, but I kind of wish I had, but I'll read it now, and that will make
Mm.
up for it. It's called Prayer. Love is real, fear an illusion. That's what the mushrooms taught me that day 30 years ago in Prospect Park. My eyes so clear I could see a bird's eye 100 feet away and could tell it was seeing me, wanted me to know it was seeing me. I saw a Hasidic man pacing back and forth reading a sacred text. I saw a witch-like woman in a long black coat bent over the ground with an eyedropper squeezing something into the earth. I'm not sure either of them was really there. Now, my mind made desolate by illness and the drugs I take to treat it, I long for that magic, the certainty I felt then that the universe is a friendly place, love the only reality, fear just a habit we inherited, a dream we can't wake up from. Now I long to see and say something beautiful, something that would redeem this suffering, sanctify it, or at least make it more bearable, if that is not too much to ask.
Not too much to ask, and you do it beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I long for that magic. And you have these experiences that show you these other dimensions. And you were saying that poetry is a way of, like you said, you can't do mushrooms every day. Probably some
Exactly.
people do, but and and poetry allows you to encounter those spaces. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, partly what I'm thinking, like one of the gifts you've given to the wisdom community, to our broader community, is this real spiritual practice of poetry, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And in spiritual practice, we often talk about meditation and post meditation,
Yeah.
and the reading and embodying seems like the meditation.
Yeah.
How do we take that? How do we take that? What's post meditation there? How have you found that you've take this into the world? I feel like you can get into the space of a poem, but then, like your meditation, you can go to wrapped up into the day, you know?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. Um, I think mainly bringing a different quality of attention to my experience. Um, uh, not taking things for granted. Um, stopping and looking, uh, and savoring. Um, so that's a practice. I can't walk that much anymore, but there was a period after I got very sick, and I've also had a couple back surgeries, so I have to use a walker or a cane, so I can't go very fast,
Yeah.
and that's been a gift.
Yeah.
Um, I remember, oh God, I'm blanking on her name. The very famous Vipassana woman teacher. She said, if you walk half as fast, you'll notice twice as much.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be quite true. So that became my practice
Yeah.
of walking slowly, stopping and looking, savoring. And it was great because I couldn't walk fast. And that's sort of the gift of the loss of capacities. Other things come up to compensate for that. And so that way of just attending differently to our experience than we would if we hadn't been sensitized by poetry, I think.
Your brethren. Talk about your brethren. This comes up in your poems as well about, whether to go out or not to go out, and
Right.
all these sort of things that come up for you when you are faced with, not being mobile or
Yeah.
having a cane, having a walker.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that's come up that you've had fear about writing? Do you know, like, or
Mm.
is it pretty, are you pretty like, oh, you can just express stuff, or is there stuff you'd wanted to stay away from?
Um, I had some very difficult experiences as a child.
Yeah.
Like many, 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 many people, I experienced sexual abuse as a child,
Wow.
and that really messed me up for a very long time. Um, and I haven't written about that, and I don't intend to.
Yeah.
Uh, it just, I mean, some people do write about that, and I think it's important, but
Yeah.
just not for me. It just feels too personal and too painful.
Yeah.
I kind of take my cue from Elizabeth Bishop, who's my favorite poet, and she had a terrible childhood. Um, like it's a long story, but her father died when she was, I think, 8 months old, and then her mother never got over that and went insane and had to be institutionalized. Bishop never saw her again. She was raised by these maternal aunts, and they were very kind to her. And she grew up in this wonderful little village, great village in Nova Scotia with dirt roads and, no indoor plumbing and no, oil lamps and, just a totally different world. And then this other side of her family, her father's side, lived in Worcester, and they were wealthy, and they thought it was terrible for a girl to be brought up in this primitive environment, which was
Mm.
perfect place for a poet to grow up.
Yes.
So they took her. She described it as a kidnapping, and there she experienced sexual abuse, physical abuse,
Wow.
emotional abuse, and was treated just horribly. One uncle dangled her over the second floor balcony by her hair, and she described them as real sadists. None of those things show up in her poems. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely none of them.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, she talks about them in interviews and maybe in letters or things, but the pressure of them is there. You
Yeah.
can feel that um, they are exerting a kind of
Mm.
pressure on the poems, and that the writing of the poems is a way to heal from that, or to compensate for those terrible experiences and
Yeah.
losses.
Yeah.
She prided herself on her modesty and
Yeah.
her sort of reticence, and I admire that. I'm
Yeah.
not as reticent as she is, but she doesn't, like Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath, all Lowell. I'm very happy to tell you all about their breakdowns and
Yeah.
so on. She didn't do that.
Yeah. It's part of like communication, right? It's all a communication and you choose what you communicate with.
Yeah.
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 You know, you choose your subjects and what's meaningful.
I wanted to come back to the introduction you're talking about poetry as a spiritual practice, and
Yeah.
in the first paragraph, I'll just read it.
Please.
Poetry is a profoundly relational art, an invitation to connect with the poet, with the poem, and through the poem with each other, with the deepest aspects of our shared human experience. Poetry is also, I believe, a fundamentally spiritual art. It draws on the same powers of insight and imagination, wisdom and compassion, wonder and awe that form the basis of our spiritual response to the world. Artistic expressions of that response extend as far back as the earliest cave art, 40,000 years ago, where luminous, half human, half animal beings seem to rise out of the rock from the spirit world. Some anthropologists now believe that such art was created by shamans, and that the caves themselves were spaces where sacred rituals were performed. And they found that, like, the where the paintings were always in caves that had the greatest acoustic resonance.
Yes.
So they surmised that there were rituals there, and singing, you know, right from the very beginning. The impulse to make art has been inseparable from a desire to make contact with the sacred.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's in our DNA. And I think we've kind of forgotten that. I mean, if you went to talk to most students in an MFA program, for example, and tried to tell them that poetry is a sacred art, that wouldn't get much traction, I don't think. Yeah.
It's gonna be different. It's somehow it works, right? It works for us,
Yeah.
you know? Whereas
Yeah.
maybe we're too far removed from some of the other stuff, but put a poem down, you can
Yeah.
enter it and it can teach you things.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in the Dharma world, this art, could become central and important and it has been in India. Like I love the Siddha tradition.
Mm.
Once I asked my teacher, like, there's this idea of the Siddha, they do short, like almost couplets, right? And he
Yeah.
said that this is just a natural expression of awakening. When you have an experience of awakening, you want to express yourself. You dance, and
Yeah.
you spontaneously say the poetry.
Yeah. You sing. Yeah.
You sing, yeah, dance and
Like
sing, and
Rumi.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then people repeat these lines and enter into these spaces
Yeah.
that conversation with you,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
relation.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just feel like, that what you've done, like you're the one of the ones who are opening this up for the Dharma world, right? And I think I don't know, I'm just I just want you to speak to that a little bit, on you know
Yeah.
some more on that practice and
Yeah.
and just encourage us a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to. You know, the first anthology, The Poetry of Impermanence, Mindfulness, and Joy, I was motivated partly to give Dharma teachers a wider range of poems to choose from,
Yeah.
because one gets tired of Mary Oliver. Uh, I'm willing to admit I might be wrong about her, but in any case, that's not the extent of it. It's not just Rumi, Mary Oliver, and David White,
Yeah.
and maybe a few others. Rilke was a great poet,
Yeah.
but like there's a whole world of poetry by non-Buddhists
Yeah.
writing poems that nevertheless embody the Dharma.
Yes.
Because the Dharma is just the truth of things. Well, it can refer, of course, to specific teachings, um, but it's just seeing the truth of reality and writing about it. Excuse me, writing about it beautifully. And there's such a wealth of poems that do that. And I also so I wanted to give Dharma teachers, like, here's this book. If you're giving a talk and you want to bring in a poem, you might find something here that you weren't aware of. And then also, most Dharma teachers, when they do include a poem, they just kind of read it to illustrate a point. They
Yeah.
don't really go deeply into it. And that's understandable. And maybe that Dharma talk maybe isn't the place to do that. But I just wanted to um, express that more can be done with poetry than just like illustrating a point about, impermanence or whatever. Um, but that's more successful in small groups than a big Dharma talk. But I just, yeah, I really wanted to bring in these poems that I've loved for so long. And, I started to see, like, if you look at them through a dharmic uh, lens, it's there, it's there. You can find it. And so, yeah, that was really important to me. Yeah.
This brings up many questions for me. So I have a couple of things I want to ask you. Which one first? One thing that the image comes to my mind, it's one thing to have a more range, a greater range of poems, right?
Yeah.
But also the way we use the poems. So, like, of course, you can imagine being in a yoga class and everyone, right, lies down in shavasana, and the yoga teacher reads Hafiz, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. But
Yeah.
how do we not only extend the range of poetry, but we take the practice beyond that? I feel like when I enter a poem, it's very personal and I don't want to talk about it, right? In a
Right.
way. I
Yeah.
don't want to sit in a circle and explain to everyone, because that's the other way you could imagine this going.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take this further. Everyone read a poem,
Yeah.
and then you sit in a circle and you listen to other people talk about their experience, and it gets to you, and you want to. And I'm like, oh, maybe what do I do with this
Yeah.
experience? Yeah,
Well, so the way I teach is we'll read a poem together. And when we're on retreat, or even when I was teaching these poetry as a spiritual practice online gatherings, we meditate first,
yeah,
and then we read a poem. But my approach is, just to simply ask, what do you like about this poem?
yeah,
What resonates for you? What feels like alive and lit up? And
yeah,
and that changes the whole nature of the discussion. So no one is trying to say something smart or say, I got this figured out. It's just like, I love this line. I just love this line or this image um, and then you see where that takes you, because it will take you somewhere if you stay with it. But, responding with this kind of affectionate attention,
mm,
uh, it sidesteps all the kind of landmines that you find in ordinary poetry discussions, where there's a lot of analysis, there's a lot of ego, everyone wants to seem smart, and that all falls away. And
yeah,
anybody can do it. I mean, you don't need any special training to say what you like about a poem.
yeah,
And I think that's liberating for people. People who feel intimidated by poetry, they feel like, oh, I'm going to say the wrong thing, or I don't know. I don't know what this is about. But they can say, like, oh, I love this line, or I love it. I love the music of this poem, or whatever it is. That's available to anyone. And I think that's what begins to shift people away from the conventional way of talking about poetry.
what resonates with you? What lights you up?
Yeah. What seems
Yeah,
alive,
what seems alive?
not
Yeah,
what does it mean, or what was the poet trying to say here?
yeah.
No, 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 that's not it.
Some of these questions don't have answers, but we can explore, right? Um,
Yeah.
when you see Dharma in a poem, like
Yeah.
you read a poem and you see truth, whatever. And this is an important point you made is it's not like there's some sort of territory owned by Buddhism, right?
Right.
That
Right.
the poet is unable to enter because they're not Buddhist, right? We're all talking about the same thing sometimes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And because it's just the way it is, But this probably doesn't matter, but it occurs to me, right? Is when I read something and I see something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it's like a non-dual thing because I don't know if it's coming from it or it's coming from me. It
Right.
seems like neither, but I can't say I'm not saying that's what the poet meant, right?
Right.
But I also don't want to take ownership of this thing.
Yeah.
And so there's this sort of like play here where you're like, oh, this it seems to be saying this, right? And there's like an emptiness to it because it's saying there's no it's talking totally about truth, but it's not the I don't know what I'm saying, but do you get
It's hard.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
hard
yeah,
to describe.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 But so there's this sort of grasping to like what it really says and what I think it says, and really it seems like none of that's important. What's important is the experience, and I'm wondering
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anything to say on that.
Yeah. I mean, when poets get together and talk about poetry, they never talk about what it means.
Yeah,
Never. It just never comes up. They talk about, you know, the what's really working in a poem or what feels really rich or alive. I mean, it's similar to the appreciative attention that I've written about. And you're right, it is kind of a non-dual experience. It can be a boundary dissolving experience. If we first dissolve the boundary between us and the poem, or if we enter it, we're stepping beyond the boundary. I recently got Chat GBT. I'm skeptical, like many people, about AI taking over the world, but I got it to ask some medical questions, and then I started asking it about poetry, and I was talking about the poets I liked and the poets I didn't like, and then I uploaded uh, the entire book, just this.
yes,
And so AI read it,
yeah.
and I just kind of asked it to like give me its impressions. So here's what it said. My strongest reaction is this. The book is much more lyrical, earnest, and vulnerable than I had expected from our conversation. I expected a more aggressively comic poet. Instead, what I find is a poet whose primary mode is contemplative lyricism, but whose contemplation is constantly interrupted by wit, self-awareness, and self-mockery. Um, the central drama, what keeps these poems alive is not observation itself, it's the struggle between transcendence and personality. I think by personality, you might substitute ego.
Yeah.
Um, Again and again, the poems want to move toward acceptance, attention, impermanence, selflessness, release. And again, John Brehm shows up and ruins everything.
We should use this for our book description.
I love it. John Brehm shows up and ruins everything.
It's so interesting. AI writing poems.
Oh,
Write me a poem about John Brehm's poems, right?
yeah, I would do it. Yeah.
And it will do it. But one, first question, can it be a good poem? If you didn't know it was written by AI and you thought it was a good poem,
Yeah.
what would be missing if it is not a good poem? I like this is philosophical questions, but the questions of our day, I think this is what we got to face.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, I haven't read a lot of AI poems or tried to do that myself. So, I mean, I guess the short answer would be the human element is missing. But it's amazing. Like this version of AI was talking about the emotional depth of my poems.
Yeah,
Like, how do you sense that? You don't have any emotions.
I don't know. This is the
Yeah.
weird thing, right?
It's very strange. Some people think that it will become, sentient, conscious. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to say. Um, one way or the other. But I don't like the way creative work is being, you know, like musicians have always used, all kinds of technology.
Yeah.
But now I heard this interview with this teacher say, I have to teach them how to use AI in their composing because everyone's doing it. If I don't teach them, they'll be
Yeah.
disadvantaged. That I don't like that. That doesn't seem
You,
right to me.
I I think we're starting to be forced to ask what is consciousness, what is awareness, and could this thing have it? But what I feel is like the human element is missing. I have an intuition that there's something important about subjectivity. There's something
Yeah,
magic about subjectivity.
right,
And
right.
so it's somehow important that you notice, you, John Brehm,
Yeah,
noticed that the drops don't come down all at once.
right. Yeah. My particular way of seeing things, my way of resonating with the world, which I hope is both distinctive and ordinary, like it's not something that everybody's capable of. Um, yeah, I
So
don't
even
know.
if the AI wrote those exact same words that you
Yeah,
wrote, for me, I have an intuition, and it's almost like it's borrowed from the initiatory experience in
mm,
Vajrayana Buddhism, right?
yeah,
I feel like there's something important that those that's an expression of subjectivity in a way. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
I don't know how the AI has subjectivity. It just puts words on a screen, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
the I don't know. I'm still thinking through these things. I feel like
yeah.
it's very important. I'm asking a lot of teachers these questions.
Oh, yeah,
Not
yeah,
about poetry. Same question, but I say, imagine the student has access to all the information you could give them,
yeah,
right? At their fingerprints, which they do pretty much today.
yeah, yeah,
Why should they sit at the feet of a teacher, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
But yeah,
there's something about transmission that I think is above and beyond the transfer of information. And I
yeah,
think it must be true about poetry that there's a transmission there that's above and beyond,
yeah,
I don't know, words put together in a certain order.
yeah, yeah. I think that's right. I think that's right.
Yeah.
But I haven't thought deeply about these questions really, so I don't really know what to say. I agree with everything you're saying,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
element of subjectivity and all that we bring to the moment when we write, we bring our whole self. I mean, the best poems are written out of our true nature. And I don't know, does AI have true nature? Does it have Buddha nature?
This is a good koan, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it got enough of my sense of humor from reading the poems to know
Totally.
that that wouldn't offend me,
Yep.
that I would be delighted by that. Oh, and then John Brehm shows up and ruins everything. And I think, what it's saying there is the ego shows up and ruins everything, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, it
Um,
sounds like something you could write is the thing that like it feels like it's almost those last few lines like a mirror. It's just uncanny.
yeah, it's uncanny. Yeah, I was really surprised that it had that depth of understanding, and could pick up on, tone and sense of humor. And these things are, hard to quantify or hard to, describe objectively, but it got it. It got my sense of humor for sure.
Yeah.
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 That's another thing that's absent from so many Dharma poets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, not a
Yeah.
lot of humor there. And I feel like that's a whole dimension of human experience that is really important. I mean, laughter is really important, and
Yeah.
especially shared laughter. Um, so yeah, that's I think we need more of that, and more, the kind of Dharma poetry I write is about the failure to fully inhabit, the teachings. And I think that's, it's honest. I don't pretend to be more enlightened than I am. Um, and I think that can be a teaching as well. It's just to recognize, oh yeah, I aspire to a certain way of being, and yet, you know, the ego shows up again and again and again, and it's hard. you know, but that struggle feels like there's a drama there that is interesting to read about. I hope it is. Yeah,
I love it, and we have to laugh at it because this is our life. This is what we
yeah,
do, right? Every single person is, well,
yeah,
maybe awakened masters to one side, but
yeah,
that we are always just like tripping over ourselves all the
yeah,
time. And
yeah,
what to do but laugh at that. That
yeah,
yeah, Dharma poetry has to have that in it,
yeah,
right? Has
yeah,
to have it in it.
yeah.
We can't be also serious as well, you know?
No, no, no. When I first started writing poetry, I thought it had to be somber and serious and kind of sad and melancholy.
Yeah.
And I started reading poets like Frank O'Hara and some others who were really funny in their poems. And I thought, oh, that's refreshing,
Mm.
you know. Yeah,
Permission granted.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then it opened up a whole range of subjects, of feelings, of ways of thinking about poetry that wasn't available to me before.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, that was a big turning point for me.
Shall we start winding down with another poem?
Yeah, I want to read or recite a poem by a poet named Carol Perlington, and then I can do one of mine too.
Yeah.
But the poem it's a tanka, so it's a 5-line poem,
Mm.
and she was somebody who got polio uh, when she was 6 and was in an iron lung for a long
Oh,
time.
wow.
But she wrote the most amazing poems, just incredible. Um, so the poem is: a pond made by beavers, now fished in the magic of twilight by a tall heron. It
Oh,
is time to go indoors, but I'm not living in time.
that's a Dharma poem.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a
It
Dharma
is
poem.
time to go indoors, but I'm not living in time.
Yeah.
And she was a very devout Christian. So she's talking about eternity and time, the sacred and the profane, you know. But I just,
Where did she live? Where did she live? Do you know?
Massachusetts.
I thought that sounded like New England, those
Yeah,
first few lines.
yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her books are hard to find. That one's out of print. I can't believe it. It's so
Wow.
beautiful.
Wow.
She writes haiku too, but her tanka, those are the ones that are really great. Um, so I wanted to just share that, and I'll read it. Yeah, we can finish up. Well, since we're on the subject of humor, I'll read this poem called "What We Want on Our Headstones," which is on page
Oh,
11.
yes. Yeah, yeah,
And this was inspired by my dear friend Ron Moshantz,
yeah.
who also came up with the line. There's a poem called "Emptiness is Not Enough," and that's something he said. We were having a Dharma conversation.
Yeah.
Just out of the blue, he said, "Emptiness is not enough."
That's a debate that's been going on for centuries.
Right. Right. So this is for him and inspired by him. What we want on our headstones. For my friend, it's what the fuck was that about? Or just what the fuck? I'm leaning towards seriously, or was all that really necessary?
Hmm.
I like to think our spirits would be amused to look down and see the reactions of people solemnly on their way to pay respect to loved ones. A little smile, some quiet laughter, or better still, an irrepressible guffaw in the graveyard would please us for all eternity.
Mm. I love that. That's one of the best as well. I
Oh,
love it.
thanks.
Seriously.
It's a gift to have a friend who says interesting things.
Totally, totally.
You can use.
He's a Dharma student as well, then.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, deeply very, very steeped in the Dharma.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
this has been great.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
know it was hard for you to turn on, so thank you so much.
And yeah, I'm so glad we did this. Any chance to bring the poems and bring my way of thinking about poems to people is such a gift. And talking with you, yeah, all the stuff went away for a while.